Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I'm very pleased to have with me Richard Gearhart. And let me tell you about Richard. Richard is an Esquire and award-winning speaker. He's a TV network expert guest, nationally syndicated radio show host, and an attorney. Richard speaks on a variety of intellectual property and business topics, and he's worked with Larry Namer, founder of E! Entertainment TV, former WWE wrestler Brimstone, The Sopranos actor Kevin Indernato, I'm sure I butchered that. Sorry, Kevin. Celebrity dentist Dr. Bill Dorfman, TV shopping network celebrity Victoria Wick, David Knoll, creator of the TV show Chopped, world-renowned relationship strategist Dr. Gilda, Terry Joes, founder of Kayak and Travelocity, and many more. Today, we're going to talk about a subject that I think is really important for new entrepreneurs, existing entrepreneurs, as well as all of those inventors out there. So it is the biggest challenges facing entrepreneurs and inventors today. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Richard Gearhart. Richard, so happy to have you on the show.
Well, thank you very much, Vicki. It's a pleasure to be here. I didn't know that we were broadcasting from Roswell, Georgia. We lived in Atlanta for probably about 5 years and just absolutely loved it. So I'm a little jealous that you're there because we're here in New Jersey and skies are cloudy and gray today. And it's always sunny in Atlanta pretty much, right? So
not the springtime, that's what makes Atlanta so beautiful is we have our rainy seasons. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, and whenever I would come and visit my sister and brother-in-law, in this time of year, I thought we need to be ducks because it's raining so much. But you do have just the very short winter, which is always much of a nice thing. I don't know if you did this when you were in Atlanta, but I usually call my parents whenever it's 80 degrees on a December day or something, just to rub it in just a little bit.
Well, as I recall, the temperature really never got that low, maybe 45 degrees during the winter time, maybe a little bit less than that. And when we moved to New Jersey, it's farther north, of course. So we all had to buy new coats, right? And get used to the colder temperatures and the heavier snow. When we were in Atlanta, we loved it. And I vowed never to go further north, but because of job transfer, I really had no choice. And so, well, here we are. 20 years later, we're still in New Jersey. And I think we've adapted. So it's home for us now. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, home is where your heart is. That's right. Why I always ask that first question of where do you call home? So you answered that. You're in Jersey. I worked for UPS for 27 years and spent many days in New Jersey, different cities, Mahwah, and traveled to the wonderful Newark airport.
It's not really wonderful. I think that's a little misleading. It's an airport, and it is sometimes, whether it's wonderful or not. In all fairness, they're trying to make it better, but it's still the Newark airport. So
it is.
And
but close enough to New York City to make it worth your while, though.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we like about being in New Jersey is that we're close to New
Hmm.
York, and there's
Hmm.
never a dull moment. My wife and I like to go out and enjoy, dinners in the nightlife and Broadway shows and museums
Yeah.
and all of those kinds of things. And really, if you like that stuff, it's hard to beat New York for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But all the other stuff comes with it, right? So
The
you're never
snow,
really sure
traffic,
what's going to happen when you're there. So,
the honking of the horns constantly, and yeah.
yeah.
My daughter was at Savannah College of Art and Design, and she interned for a fashion house in New York for 6 months, and so um, I was taking projects that were in Jersey, so I would just go and do my week there in Jersey, and then go and spend the weekend with her, visiting one of my favorite places is the Met. I
Oh,
love the Met.
yeah, absolutely. It's you hear some wonderful production, so absolutely.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
it's a great experience. Nobody does it
for
like the Met.
sure.
So,
That's right. That's
yeah.
right. So I just really barely touched on your journey. We talked about all the great things that are happening and have happened to you, but I'd love for you to share about the journey of really what informed who you are today and why you do what you do today. So, talk to us about that journey that you had.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, maybe we'll go into the weeds a little bit on that. Um,
Hmm.
I grew up as an only child, and my parents were away a lot, so I had to occupy myself. And I was always interested in models and slot cars and mechanical things, bicycle, anything that was mechanical caught my attention. I would spend a lot of
Hmm.
time in my dad's workshop working on these things. And I just sort of kind of had a knack for it. And eventually, I went through a lot of different iterations for a career. I wanted to work for big businesses and big companies. I went to undergraduate and got a degree in chemistry because I was thinking
Wow.
about maybe going to medical school. I ended up going to law school instead. And then from there, I ended up becoming an intellectual property lawyer where I could kind of put that knack for mechanical things to good use.
Yeah.
So, intellectual property covers patents, trademarks, and copyrights, and also trade secrets. And so, one of my specialties was patents, which deals with inventions, which often deals with these mechanical kinds of objects.
Yeah.
And I remember when I graduated from law school, I wanted to do something different. So I went overseas and I lived in Switzerland for 2 years.
Wow.
And I got a degree from the Graduate Institute of International Studies in international law. And I worked for a large law firm. And there, when I was in Switzerland, I came back to the United States and ended up working for a small intellectual property boutique law firm. And really, after just a very short period of time, I think it was 2 weeks, I was like, I found my passion. I loved everything about intellectual property. I liked the fact that it had an international aspect to it, which sort of worked with my time in Switzerland. A lot of mechanical stuff. Um,
Hmm.
I just liked the way the whole practice worked. And I found my niche right away. And that was almost 40 years ago.
Wow.
And I really haven't deviated too far from that path. Everything that I've done professionally has been connected to intellectual property now for the whole time. So I was one of those fortunate people that found my passion, and it still burns brightly today. I
Yeah.
really enjoy my work, and now it's shifted. And now more, I think more in terms of the business side of things. I like to think about helping entrepreneurs. I really like the idea of helping people start their own businesses because I see your work as an expression of yourself. And so if you're able to work for yourself, then I think that those opportunities for self-expression are a lot different, are a lot better. So,
For sure.
so
So
and it,
it's
yeah,
so
it's
that's kind of informed who you are today, then, really.
yeah, I would say so, at least on a professional level. So,
Hmm.
um, and I
That's
do.
another podcast outside
That's
that.
another podcast. So, yeah, I really am fortunate to have found something that I like to do, and I mean, I do think there are a lot of people who've been successful doing pivots, right, in their career.
Hmm.
I found success by just staying with the same thing and, liking it enough that I really never thought about doing anything else, right? And
Right.
that's, you know, over the years, I accumulated a lot of knowledge and experience in
Yeah.
the field. And I like to say there isn't anything that I haven't done. I know we've done litigation, we prepare patents, we prepare trademarks. We've seen so many of them that we become
Hmm.
very familiar with the patterns, the fact patterns that come up during these uh, cases. And so we're able to, I think, give, really good support and help to our clients. So,
Awesome. So it's interesting. As a project manager for UPS, I was fortunate to have probably two or three times where we introduced a product that had never been to the market before. And so I had to delve into the intellectual property piece of it. And I found it, just like you were saying, very interesting. And I could see how it would always be kind of like an ember burning because of the the challenge of really understanding every aspect of what you do and what is patentable and what is not patentable and things like that. So I found it really kind of stimulating as we went through all that to understand and you really get to understand the process and what you're building and how it could be impactful.
yeah, absolutely. For me, it's like solving a puzzle, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have all these different pieces that you have to kind of put together.
Yeah.
Hopefully, at the end of the process, everything works out, and you get your protection. So,
Mm-hmm.
my focus has been on patents, which is technology. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
for a while, I headed up the pharmaceutical group at Novartis Pharmaceutical Group, Novartis Pharmaceuticals in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and I had responsibility for about 40
Wow.
patent and trademark attorneys, and there I sort of had a developed a passion for life science work,
Yeah.
and really wanted to enjoy working in the field of new medicines, new preparations. And our practice now has a big life sciences component. We don't represent any large pharmaceutical companies anymore, but we represent a lot of entrepreneurial startups, sometimes professors, smaller companies that have medicines and that the larger companies would eventually acquire
Mm-hmm.
and then market, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, so I think for me, it's very fulfilling to not only be helping entrepreneurs for consumer products or software, but we also have this branch of the firm that can help support the development of new medicines. And, the interaction between life sciences now and artificial intelligence is just
Pretty cool.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty
And
cool.
you're seeing so many now new innovations. We were talking recently on the Passage to Profit radio show, which is the show that my wife and I
Mm-hmm.
host. We have a medical minute there. And there's a new technology that allows AI to read brain scans of stroke victims. And
Mm.
this technology is very accurate. And I hate to say it, it's better than the humans when it comes to reading these scans and understanding them. Now, I told Elizabeth on the show, I said, I don't want just a computer to read my brain scan if I have a stroke.
Hmm.
I want a human being to do it too, right? Because I'm not at the point where I
Yeah.
completely trust the software. But these kinds of systems then help physicians treat stroke victims more effectively, right?
Hmm.
And so I think that the direction that the technology is going in the medical field is really fascinating right now. And
Yeah.
there are so many new innovations, robotic surgery, for example. Here in New Jersey, I recently attended the opening of a new cancer center, the Jack and Carol Morris Cancer Center
Mm.
in New Brunswick. And they have a number of surgical rooms now that are filled with robots that will do
Yeah.
robotic surgery on cancer patients. And so in a lot of ways, technology is just taking us in, amazing
Yeah,
directions
for
that
sure.
I never envisioned when I first started out. So,
Yeah.
um, very,
Full circle.
it's a very exciting time, right? So,
Yeah, I know. Two of the other businesses I'm involved with are to deal with wellness. One is LifeWave, which is the phototherapy patches, and the other is Neora. And so they're both always coming up with new innovative solutions that obviously are patented and copyright and all those wonderful things. But it is fascinating to see where science is going today, for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely. So,
So, what are the 5 secrets of a successful entrepreneur, do you think?
well, that's a great question. And I'm not really sure there's a one size fits all answer to
Yes.
that, but I'll tell you the things that I feel help make me successful.
Right.
Um, I would say first and foremost is you have to understand the value and the leverage that your product or service brings, to the market. So you have to,
Hmm.
why would somebody want this? Typically, people are going to pay money for something where they feel like the value of the product or service in their lives exceeds what they're paying for it, right? Or at least it's an even trade at a minimum, right? But they're either going to save time, or they're going to receive comfort, or they're going to receive entertainment. I mean, in the case of patents, intellectual property, somebody might invest $10,000 or $20,000 in a patent, but by doing that, they're protecting the market for a product that may be $500,000 or $1 million or $10
Yeah.
million. So they're making a small investment in the intellectual property to protect the market that's much larger. And so therefore they're getting an advantage to filing on the intellectual property. So, maybe they
Hmm.
spend a year developing the product and they spent, $50,000
Yeah.
developing the product, maybe more. With the
Hmm.
$20,000 investment, they can preserve their market for a larger sales volume and a longer period of time. And so that's how intellectual property, for example, adds value. And so entrepreneurs need to understand that too about their product,
Hmm.
because that's really what drives the sales and the purchases at the end of the day. Part of it is the marketing. Part of it is making sure that people know that your offering is out there. And I guess I would say that's probably point number two, is
Hmm.
making sure that your marketing is strong. But number one is really understanding how the service is and what you're giving to the client is more than they're giving to you in
Mm.
compensation. So if you can figure that piece out, then your product will have traction. And it's important, if you're starting out, to make sure that you know that there's a market for your product. If you just
Yeah.
ask your friends and your family, and if they like you, they'll probably say, "Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's great,
sure.
Rich. Go for it." Yeah, but you may need a more objective opinion on that, and you don't want to shy away from that. You want to do that, and there are a lot of state government institutions that kind of support this. So at least in New Jersey and probably in other states, there are groups you can go to where you can get some feedback on your idea. And, and so you should do that, I think, before you make a big investment in a project. And so, understanding that product market fit is very important.
Right, right.
I would say number 3 is just for yourself. If you want to be a better entrepreneur, you have to develop as a person. So you have to understand your strengths and weaknesses and either work on your weaknesses or find somebody who can compensate for those weaknesses. So if you're not good with numbers, then you need to find somebody on your team who is good with numbers. And it'll make a big difference in your growth. It's hard to do everything yourself and be a jack of all trades. And part of developing yourself too, aside from knowing your strengths and weaknesses, is developing good habits. All right. So I have a very regular regimen of how I plan my weeks and my months. Try to know what I'm going to be doing when. I have clear tasks that I need to work on, and I write it all down and I refer to it during the day. And, I have a system that works pretty well for me. And I really attribute a lot of the success, especially when I was starting out, to really being organized in that way and, staying on top of the stuff that I needed to do. And, part of the growth, part of the challenge with the entrepreneurs is dealing with setbacks, and we all have them. People make a mistake here, and I say, don't worry, I've lost more money than anybody, all of you put together. So please don't, we all make mistakes and we all have to learn from them. But at least having a plan, I think, gives you a place to go to as a way to start kind of recovering, from the mistakes that you make. So I think working on yourself, becoming a better communicator, if you need to work on that, working on your self-esteem, right? Learning to take the right kinds of risks, calculated risks, all of those play into who you are. And then your business sort of develops from that. So I think having self-awareness and, I've spent a lot of time working on myself, and I'm not sure it's paid off, but I would say that overall, I would say that's been the most satisfying part of the entrepreneurial journey. Has just been, for example, I used to be terrified public speaking, and I would stutter. I wouldn't know what to say. I wouldn't know how to present myself. And I started working on that. And here I am on a podcast, right?
That's right.
And so those are all things that, that you can work on and improve. And
that's for sure.
So I don't know, how many is that? 3? I have to come
No,
up with
no, that was
that
was actually you gave more than 4, or 5. So I wanted to ask, just because I think the audience may not all know the difference between a patent, a trademark, and a copyright.
Sure. I can riff on that for hours, but I'll short.
Another podcast.
So patents deal with protecting inventions and technology, gadgets, medical preparations, software. And trademarks protect brands. So it's the name of the product or the name of the company. So the most famous trademark in the universe is Coca-Cola trademark, right?
Right.
And you have the Coca-Cola bottling company that's protected with a trademark, and then the other, they call the product, Coke or Coca-Cola, and those that's all about branding. It's protecting your brand, and then copyrights protect original works of expression, and what that means are books, movies, statue, works of art, novels, anything has a creative element can be protected with a copyright, and it protects how it's expressed. So you would get a copyright on your romance novel, for example, but there's been lots of people falling in love, and that's happened in a lot of stories. But what the copyright does is it protects to some extent the characters and also the language that the writer uses. So those are copyrights. And one of the things that I like to bring up for entrepreneurs is that before you get too far into your new business, you want to make sure that you check to make sure that somebody else doesn't have the trademark that you want. Somebody else doesn't already have a patent on your invention. And this is where entrepreneurs can really run into trouble. So a trademark search is less than $1,000. It's, $750 if you came to Gearhart Law. We would check to make sure that somebody else doesn't already own a trademark on your brand. And that's very important, because if you don't do that, we constantly have people coming to us who get cease and desist letters from a company that's over on the other side of the country. And the client is just beginning to get success with their business. And they're out there, they're on social media, they're on the internet, they're selling product, they're selling services, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they get this cease and desist letter saying, wait, you can't use that name because we have it trademarked. And they're like, what? And so now what do? You either have to change your name, or you have to fight, you get involved in litigation, and you end up spending a lot of money to defend your investment in your brand. And that's just horrible. I mean, that's really, and if you had known about it when you started, you could have picked a different name before you made that investment.
Yeah.
So we see this too often. And, if you can't afford the $750 to do a trademark search, you can go to the trademark office and look on their website. It's not as good as having a professional do it. You're better off letting a professional do it. But if you're really on a tight budget, you can at least check yourself and make sure that there isn't another trademark out there that's going to come back to get you at the worst possible time. And the same logic applies for inventions. You want to make sure that there aren't patents out there held by somebody else that they can assert against you. So
for sure. I can concur with all of that for the various projects I've done. And also, UPS has trademarked the name. And one of my duties for a couple years was to contact people who needed to speak with our legal team.
Oh, really?
Because they put UPS in their part of their name. So it was very, not a great letter to get, for sure.
No. And, in some cases, people try to sort of associate themselves with the big brands because they think that will help in their marketing. That's really not a good idea.
And even in branding, a lot of the big companies like UPS and others, they don't allow you to co-brand. If you had like a summit or a webinar or something, and you had somebody from that company as a speaker, you have to get permission to actually co-brand your brand with their brand. So it's awesome. It's very interesting. Well, whenever we talk about the role of collaboration. How important is it to the success for a new invention to have that collaborative environment, I guess?
Oh, that's a really great question, and it's not one that comes up very frequently. So if I just sort of look at the data, um, a lot of our inventors are sort of solo inventors,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then we have other patents that are based on teamwork, where there's a lot of collaborators. I think it comes down to the personality and the preference of the people who are creating. Do you do better working on your own, or do you do better in a team? And oddly, sometimes it comes down to are you willing to share credit? And I think that things work better in teams, but if the basic idea is yours, there's no reason why you can't file a patent on it and then include others at a maybe at a little bit later point. Um, so it really depends on the organization, if it's an organization, or it depends on the individual, if they're, if,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think the major goal should always be to come up with
A
an invention
win-win.
or a technology that is going to be desirable in the marketplace. So
Yeah.
if you can do that yourself, go for it. If you do better with the support of others, then go for that. So
So my brother, for many years, was an inventor, and he patented most of his inventions, but he also found necessary for cost, at good costs and things like that to work with China,
no.
which became kind of troublesome. So you have your international law background anyway, because they would then do a patent that um, was making them sole inventor kind of thing. So it was, I guess, there was sort of a lesson learned learned a few times because even though he had a patent here in the U.S., they created patents that then made them um, have more rights than he did.
So, I mean, that's not an uncommon scenario. So when you file a patent, typically you try to get broad claims that cover a lot of variations on the invention. So for a patent, the whole idea is not just to patent the exact article that you're making, but, you know, patent variations on it. So for example,
Process,
if I were
yeah,
to file a patent on my desk here, I would want to cover different materials, glass, metal, wood. I would want to cover desks that are rectangular or oval or five legs or drawers, or, there's a lot of different ways you can make a desk. And a good patent covers as many of those different ways as you can. But it is possible now, if somebody, just to take your brother's situation, you can file a smaller, narrower patent that sort of falls within the umbrella of the first big one. And if the company, the Chinese company, does that, then they control what's actually being made and sold. So they need your brother's patent because it's the big umbrella one, but they also
hmm,
have this narrow patent that is really what covers what the consumer sees in the marketplace. And then your brother
that's
would
right.
have to go find somebody else to work with, and that maybe they could come up with another variation that's outside the Chinese patent. But who wants to do that? That's a lot of work,
Right.
and so to the extent that it's possible, you want to consult with a professional who's familiar with these kinds of tricks, and do what you can to defend against it. And the business world isn't perfect. Maybe maybe he ended up dealing with this company because that was the best option that was available, and their terms were, okay, well, we're going to keep all the patents for stuff that we do, and tough, right? And sometimes they have the better bargaining position. But sometimes, you can negotiate an agreement that says, well, China company, any ideas you come up with are mine. And sometimes they'll accept that because they want your product. Or that, maybe they can file the patent, but then you get a license to use it, maybe in a different territory or something. So there's options to negotiate these agreements so that you end up, not losing your shirt or losing all your power in the situation, right? And so
yeah, it really only took one time for him to learn his lesson, but I thought it's worth letting people know because a lot of people are trying to outsource other ways now with our current situation of tariffs. Maybe it isn't the best idea anyway, but
well, anytime you go into a agreement with another company, especially a larger company, whether it's in the US or it's in China, I mean, the issues are the same. And so
right.
you want to make sure you have legal representation going in there. So at least you go into it with your eyes open, right?
Exactly.
And so
So I guess for my final question, if someone is thinking about protecting their intellectual property, and we have all of these new companies coming out with AI and really data-driven kind of companies, marketing processes and systems. What would you advise for them to protect? What would be maybe the first step they would take to protect that intellectual property?
well, the first thing is to see an intellectual property attorney. Most of us offer free initial consultations. We certainly do. And so, intellectual property is pretty complex. It's pretty nerdy. There's a lot of regulations and rules and laws and stuff. And no human being except an intellectual property attorney would really be expected to know. And we don't make it that way on purpose. It just kind of turned out that way. But talk with somebody who can understand what you're trying to do and then, give you advice about, well, these are some of the things to look out for. These are the danger zones. If you want to go through the patent process, this is how it works. This is what it costs. This is what a trademark is, what it does. Should you have one? Well, maybe you should. Maybe you don't need one right away.
Right.
Maybe so. It's you want to speak with somebody first, and then the AI component. I like AI. I personally think it's been oversold a little bit. We've been implementing some AI systems here at the law firm, and it doesn't. They don't get near any of our client confidential information. It's just like administrative systems.
Speeds up processes.
Yeah, and they're sort of working, but it's not. It's so far it hasn't. It's like 80% there, right? I always tell people though that if you put something onto ChatGPT, if you put your invention, your ideas out there into the AI world, if you put it out there on Google, then it could potentially become public disclosure. So if one of my life science clients puts their medicine into ChatGPT is going to take that information, and if somebody asks a question about a similar thing, that client's medication could come up as a solution. And maybe the client wants to keep it confidential right now because,
right.
And so I'm always, say you need to be careful about what you put into the engines, and you need to realize that while there are benefits to do that, there are also risks. And we haven't had a case yet that's been litigated where we've had that situation of somebody putting their invention into ChatGPT. So we don't know how a court's going to react to that. And so until we understand that, I tell my clients, be cautious. And they go and they do what they want, but it's I would not. I just want to make them aware that there's maybe a risk there sometimes. And
Yeah.
so my
I
job
use it all the time, but it's just to speed up my administrative processes. I'm not putting any inventions out
no,
there.
no. I mean, so um so yeah, I mean I use it all the time too. I use it for all sorts of stuff. I love it.
Hmm.
Um, but it's not for everything, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, nothing is for everything. All right. So this has been a wonderful conversation. I thank you so much for sharing. And I'm sure that the audience would love to know how to connect with you and to potentially share some conversation about what their invention is or help with their entrepreneurial journey. So I'm going to share, as always, my contact slide for Richard. If you are watching, you can get a screenshot. If you're just listening, you definitely can go to Vicki Noethling YouTube channel. You always should subscribe to that if you haven't already, as well as my findyourleadershipconfidence.com. The website is richardgearhartesq.com. richardgearhartesq.com. Facebook, Instagram, and X are all his podcast name, Passage to Profit Show. Again, Passage to Profit Show for Facebook, Instagram, X is Passage to Profit without the show. LinkedIn, you can search his name, Richard Gearhart, a bunch of numbers, but just search Richard Gearhart, Gearhart, and you'll find him. YouTube is at Passage to Profit Show. And again, that podcast that you want to subscribe to so you can get information timely that will be helpful for your journey is Passage to Profit Show, Road to Entrepreneurship. Again, Passage to Profit Show, Road to Entrepreneurship. I'm going to turn it over to Richard. He'll talk to you about his call to action today, a little bit about that podcast, what kind of topics he covers on that, as well as what he puts out on his website. And maybe there's one or two social media that he spends the most time in that would be helpful to you. So, Richard, it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Vicki. I didn't appreciate until now that I had so many URLs. Holy cow! It's good to be reminded of that. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, as far as calls to action, I just want you to get out there and be the best that you can be. We've had a very successful law practice, and we've helped a lot of entrepreneurs, and we really like to support the people that we work with on legal services, but also in other ways too. And so if you do have an invention or a business that you want to protect, you can contact us at gearhartlaw.com. And we have contact forms there that you can reach us through. And if you are interested in the broader topic of entrepreneurism, please join us on Passage to Profit. My wife is delightful. She's really funny. And we'd like to entertain and also educate. We talk a lot about artificial intelligence, and we like to keep on top of that topic because it's really where the world seems to be moving. And right. So we think that one way we can help our listeners is to help them stay on top of developments there. And if you would like to reach out and learn more about us, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can reach me through that. And also Instagram. So if you have any questions or contacts, then that'd be great.
Awesome. Richard, thanks again for being such a great guest today. You really shared a lot of information that I'm pretty sure a lot of people just don't think about entrepreneurs as well as the small business owner, but it's really important that you stay aware of this and especially that business, that idea is your baby, and you hate for someone else to get hold of it because you didn't take the steps to trademark copyright or patent.
Yeah, well said. I mean, it's not only just a business blow, it's a personal blow when somebody, walks off with your stuff. So protect yourself.
Awesome. As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.